Well, that's not the basketball show. I'm already off track. I'm really flustered today, Josh, because we're on YouTube. I've actually got to look into a camera right now, so I'm going right back to muscle memory. And this is Hoop City with Paul Sir, along with Josh Fenwick. Josh, good morning.
Good morning, Paul. How are we doing today?
Well, we can only go up from here.
I'm inclined to agree. You call it the basketball show right off rip. You know what? Things could be worse.
Things could be worse. Absolutely. It was a great name for a show, but we're really excited that it's Hoop City right now. You can listen and watch our show on a variety of different platforms. Of course, you can listen on Sports 1440 on your radio. You can also listen online at sports1440.ca on your phone, etc. Watch us on YouTube. And we are on a variety of podcast platforms. So if you can't check us out right now, you can watch us or listen to us later. So thank you for spending your morning with us today. And we have a great, great show today. I'm excited to announce our guest list. But first of all, Josh, why don't you tell our listeners about and our viewers about what our poll question is?
All right. Our poll question today is, hold on, let me just make sure I have it here. All right, poll question. Most impressive early season team performances. We have Toronto, Phoenix, Detroit, or Houston. That will be up on our X.com. Everything's happening on an X account in the next couple minutes here.
Fantastic. And I think it's an interesting question because when we talk about teams that we expected to do well that maybe over the past few seasons haven't done as well, I don't really think the names of these teams would have been what we would have expected it to be. Phoenix has been a dumpster fire over the last few years, but they've come out of the gates really impressively. They made a strategic trade, and we're going to talk a little bit about one of those key pieces, which is Dillon Brooks, the Canadian who had a very successful career in Houston rather, and was doing extremely well there, moved over to Phoenix, and he's brought that toughness and that edge and that attitude with him, and it's certainly bearing out results. And I've got a funny story, a very typical Dillon Brooks story that we'll talk about in just a little bit. But Toronto, of course, doing extremely well. Our guests today really have a great lineup. NAIT here in town in the ACAC, they're led by two wonderful young coaches, Adika, Peter-McNeilly. That name is very familiar to Edmonton basketball fans because of Adika's tremendous career for 6 years playing with the Edmonton Stingers. After a stellar collegiate and post-secondary professional career overseas, played really well for the Stingers, is still an assistant coach with the Stingers, but is the head coach at NAIT and doing extremely well, nationally ranked, as are the women at NAIT as well under Kiera Lyons. Kiera has been at NAIT, I think this is her 4th season, and it's really, her program's really taking root. They had a tough loss we'll talk about last night, but Kiera's going to be joining us as well in the 1020 segment. And then in the 1040 segment, we're going to have Steve Sir, my son Steve, who has been Canada's #1 3x3 player for about 8 years. And now Steve is off. He's on a flight right now, heading down to Mexico, where he is going to be in a training camp with the Canada Basketball AmeriCup team, and they're going to be competing next weekend in Mexico, as will the women. Last year, the men won a bronze, first ever medal for the men, and the women won gold in the AmeriCup. And they're going to be down there, the women, of course, to defend their gold medal performance. But the men, they have their eyes set on a different color of medal as well. So we'll be talking with Steve in the 1040 segment. Then at 11 o'clock, very, very excited to have Pat Boylan. And Pat is the play-by-play voice of both the Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever. And Pat has been on our show many, many times. And what I am excited about is the Pacers aren't the team they were last year when they went to the NBA Finals, are they, Josh?
No, they aren't. But I think it kind of is crazy how important Tyrese Halliburton is to the whole operation they're running over there. For them to be where they are now, I don't think they've won an additional game yet. Are they still one in?
No, they did defeat.
They did.
They did win the other night. They beat. I want to say it was Washington. That was, also
the lowly Wizards.
Yeah, the lowly Wizards. There are a few teams that are really in the cellar this year.
They beat the Hornets.
Hornets, okay. Charlotte's been up and down. They almost beat the Raptors last week. Raptors had a nice surge at the end and were able to come back and beat the Hornets. But we're going to talk to Pat about how the mighty have fallen, but what the reasons are for that and how difficult it is to keep a winning program going, because there are external factors that you can't control that oftentimes make for a very difficult change in a team's performance and culture. So we'll be with Pat, but he's going to be with us on the deep dive at 11. And in the second segment, after we talk about the Pacers and the Fever, we're going to dive into Steve Kerr's remarks about what he feels needs to be done to address the problems that they're having in the NBA with key players suffering so many injuries. So we're going to go into a few of the deep topics in the NBA right now that are certainly on people's minds. Every week we try to do what we call 3 from Deep. We're going to change the format up a little bit today. Josh, why don't you fire the 3 questions at me, and we'll have a good discussion about them.
All right. Let's go one by one here. Steve Kerr's call for change to the NBA schedule to reduce injuries, pace, emphasis on three-point shooting, expectations on playing hurt, load management, back-to-backs.
That one you don't have to read that one. Oh. Sorry about that, but
that's okay.
We're going to talk with Pat Boylan about this in more in depth, but I did want to touch on it because Kerr, who won multiple championships as a player, multiple championships as a coach, is known as a player's coach, has won the gold medal, obviously, for the United States. I mean, when Steve Kerr talks, you have to listen. And I think Kerr makes some good points. 82 games, that's a lot. I think, though, what people struggle with, Josh, is these players make so much money. And why, in the era of Chuck Taylor's being the prevalent footwear, nothing even resembling the kind of training, diet, nutritional, physiotherapy, all of the resources that the modern NBA athlete has. Why were players like John Stockton and Michael Jordan, who played in an incredibly physical era, why were they able to oftentimes play 82 games, where now 82 games, that's a real badge of honor because so few people are able to do that. And I think what Kerr is trying to address is that the game has changed. It's much faster in its pace. The players on defense have to cover much more territory because of the emphasis on the three-point shot. But on the other hand, when you start talking about load management, which was really popularized in San Antonio, starting first with the Duncan, Robinson, Ginobili, Parker era, but then really took root with Kawhi Leonard, of having star players taking nights off, particularly with back-to-backs. And Kerr is trying to say, maybe we need to go from 82 games down to 62 or 70 games, number one. And number two, if we eliminate back-to-backs, the wear and tear from travel, etc., that might be lessened. Like I said, we're going to dive into this with Pat, who sees it on a daily basis, and certainly in Indiana when you're dealing with the severe injury that Tyrese Halliburton has. You really have to look at it and say, well, is there something to what Kerr's saying? Just a real quick thought on your part, Josh. Is there something to a reduction in the number of games, and is there a snowball's chance in where that the NBA would ever do this?
I think a reduction in games would be a good place to start. Will the NBA ever do it? Nope. It's a numbers game for the NBA. Got to make money. There are 82 games, and I think they've decided that they make money there, and so that's where they want it. My thought on the whole thing is I think there is validity to the high tops versus low tops shoe discussion and the help that it gives an ankle for stability. I also think that the AAU tournaments that kids start at, like, we have NBA players that are like, oh, well, that kid's going to the NBA at like 12 years old, and they play in AAU tournaments every weekend. They basically have a full career of time on the court under them, except they're not playing in NBA physicality. They're not playing at NBA pace, but they're still running around and they're doing all this stuff. And I think it's seriously hurting them in the long run because they are tacking on an extra 5 years to the start of their career, essentially. And I think their athletes' bodies just aren't made to go that way unless you're a special breed like a LeBron James or a Tom Brady, honestly.
You know, it's interesting. Those are really interesting observations because you're really talking about overuse at a young age. There's a lot to be said for that. I do agree with what you're saying, Josh. I think you really have to weigh it out as well about the 12-month athlete. When you're told at 12 years old that you have to play year-round, otherwise somebody else is getting better than you, and that's going to affect your ability to go on to the next level, the intense pressure to play year-round and be a specialized athlete at a young age really does have to, I think, have a seminal moment where more and more voices, which are out there, by the way, a lot of basketball players encourage young athletes to be multi-sport athletes in their own right. Try other sports. Take some time off. But one of the things we're going to explore over the coming months is the impact of the pressure that is put on kids and families to participate, whether it's AAU, it's club basketball in Canada, to be playing all the time. Otherwise, you know, things aren't going to work out the way that you want to. Somebody else is in the gym getting better. I really think that needs to be discussed. So that's a great point. Let's go to number 2.
All right, number 2, the Minnesota Timberwolves are your hometown team.
They are.
What happened in last night's 114-113 loss to Phoenix?
Wolves were up by 8. Now, this is an NBA team with all NBA talent. They were up by 8 with 50 seconds to go. In the last 50 seconds, here's a stat line for you, Josh.
All right.
0 for 1 from the field, 0 for 2 from the free throw line with 2 turnovers, and they lost on a Phoenix Gillespie floater with 6.4 seconds left. The Wolves' record is interesting. They are perfect against sub-500 teams, and they're perfect against teams above 500, only it's in the opposite direction. They have not won a game against a plus 500 team. Now, last night, Dylan Brooks, I had mentioned him earlier, the Canadian, who is known, who has a reputation for his stare down to LeBron James, tough guy attitude, you know, kind of hard-nosed play, which is in a lot of ways quite entertaining and very refreshing. But I think what Dylan last night, the Phoenix makes the basket, he tosses it to the officials, which you can't do. It slows the game down. And it was the second violation. There had been a warning earlier. Really should have been a technical foul on Brooks, but the officials didn't call that. Now, that's hometown sour grapes, I realize. The blame for this loss squarely on the Timberwolves. I like the Timberwolves team, particularly their top 5, and I like their top 7 when Conley coming off the bench, and of course Naz Reid, who started out slowly but has had some great games coming off the bench. Last year's 6th man of the year. But boy, when you go beyond number 7, I don't know about this team. They really have a lot of question marks about how good they're going to be. But that's, again, not why they lost last night. They lost with their best players on the court. They just blew it. They didn't take care of the ball. It was sloppy. It was undisciplined. It's not typical of a Chris Finch coached team, and I'm sure they're hearing about it today in practice. Let's go to number 3.
Number 3, Lenny Wilkens passed away recently. He was in Edmonton in 2008 for a coaching clinic. Do you have any personal stories about his visit?
Very fond memories of the honor of having Lenny Wilkens in 2008 here in Edmonton. It was the year that Canada basketball and Canada as a country switched over completely to using FIBA rules. Up until that time, Canada had used either NCAA rules or modifications of NCAA rules. But in 2008, they went full-fledged into FIBA basketball. Now, Lenny Wilkens was brought up for this clinic, not so much to talk about the FIBA changes. That was done with other coaches, with the officials. But it was a very probably the best attended coaching clinic we've ever had, I believe, in Edmonton. We had somewhere around 250 to 300 coaches and officials at this event. And Lenny was there. He got out on the court at Harry Ainley, walked people through the drills, did all of the things that you would expect a Hall of Fame coach to do. From this vantage point, Lenny made the point, you become a great player when nobody's watching. It is the time you put in purposefully on the right things that's going to make you a great player. So listen, Josh, to what Lenny Wilkens accomplished. He's been inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame not once, not twice, 3 times as a player, as a coach. And by the way, he's both the winningest and the losingest coach in NBA history, but also with the 1992 Dream Team. He was an assistant coach on the 1992 Dream Team. He was named to both the 50th and 75th anniversary All-NBA teams. Like I said, he was understated, quiet, dignified, but I had the opportunity to pick him up at the airport and take him out to lunch. And Lenny let his hair down, so to speak. And what he did was he told me a ton of stories about his experiences as a player, as a coach, some of the personalities that he played with, against, and coached with and against. And it was hilarious, to be honest. When Lenny let his hair down, the language got a little saltier. The edge of him as a player became a little more apparent. And the thing I liked about Lenny was his sincerity. Later that year, about 3 months later, I went to Las Vegas to watch Canada play the United States, to watch their Olympic teams play in 2008. Lenny was there being honored along with a number of other NBA greats. Afterwards, I walked by him. He looked at me and goes, "Oh, hey, Paul, how you doing?" To have somebody remember you just shows that the guy was in the moment and that he was sincere. But we had greatness in our midst when Lenny Wilkens was here in 2008, just like we did just a couple of months ago when we had John Stockton in town for the Alberta Basketball Association's 50th anniversary celebration, with John being the keynote speaker. So once in a while, you're able to rub shoulders with greatness, and I certainly was privileged to be able to do that. We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we're going to focus on ACAC basketball with the head men's coach and the head women's coach from NAIT. Both are nationally ranked. We'll talk to Adika and to Kiera right after these messages. Hoop City with Paul Sir on your sports leader, Sports 1440. We're waiting for Adika Peter-McNeilly. Oh, he's on. That's fantastic. My first guest in this segment is Adika Peter-McNeilly. Adika is the head men's basketball coach at NAIT, and they're off to a great start. 8-1 so far, nationally ranked. Adika, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me. Can you hear me, Adika?
I can hear you.
Okay, that's good. And Josh, are we doing okay? All right. You know, you got to be smiling pretty there, Adika. You look good, man. You look good.
Thank you.
So last night, Adika, you continued your winning ways with your NAIT Ooks defeating the University of Alberta Augustana Vikings handily. You go to 8-1. You're nationally ranked. Talk about the season thus far and what has been the key, or what are the keys to the success of the Ooks season so far?
Wow. I mean, we got to think about it. It's been a long season, even though we've only been playing until November. We've had a rough preseason that saw us go to Toronto. We played some college and university. We did not win a game. We came home. We played 4 preseason games or 5 preseason games, only won 1. And I told the guys, I'm like, the reason why I put these tough games is so we did. And it kind of started off with all our losses, especially we had a tough loss against Concordia in the preseason, and we had a heart-to-heart. And I told them, like, if you want to be a team that's going to be playing deep until March, these are the games that we have to go through right now to get better.
Well, I think when you frame the logic and the strategy behind that kind of move, where you're actually challenging the players early, I think there's a tremendous amount of wisdom, and obviously, Adika, I'm stating the obvious here. It's paying off thus far in your season, but so often, whether it's football or basketball, teams load the schedule up early with weak sisters, and then they come out and they probably have a false sense of how good they are, where you're kind of going at it from the reverse angle and saying, this is what we need to work on, and our weaknesses are being exposed right out of the gate. Fair way to summarize?
For sure. Yeah, and that's kind of the model I kind of want to bring with the guys. I think from last year's success that we kind of had an idea like, oh, we're just going to be a top team in the ACAC and just kind of steamroll teams. And you know this, that the ACAC is a revolving door and teams going to be good that weren't good last year. So I kind of challenge these guys and being, hey, listen, like if you want to be the top dogs, we have to see the top teams. We're going to be playing the top teams early on, especially now with the South, and we can't just be happy with wins. Like even though we're winning basketball games, we know we have to get a lot better. W's
are ultimately the best letter that you can have by your record. We all understand that. But like you said, Adika, sometimes W's can cover up a lot of weaknesses that if they're not addressed early in the season, it can come back to bite you when it becomes crunch time. So, Adika, you made an interesting comment about the ACAC being a quote-unquote revolving door. And I don't think oftentimes people realize how fluid lineups are in ACAC teams. It's not that eligibility requirements aren't there. They certainly are. But it is a very fluid league in that you have players transferring from youth sports teams, coming from high school teams, crossing over from other college teams. What challenges does that present to a coach like yourself in terms of, first of all, with your team, building team culture as well as execution, but also in terms of recruiting, planning, and player development?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, last year we lost our two leading scorer at backcourt. One is now Omar Farah, who's at Division II, and obviously Peter now at McEwen. So with that, I kind of just go with the model of just having chemistry and having guys that are from the city, guys that know each other and want to come home and play. So regardless if you're transferring from different schools, like at least you have some connection to the city. And I think that's very important with our team. If you go on our roster right now, you can see a lot of Edmonton, Alberta roster guys. And I think it's been paying off for us a lot. So, but yeah, I mean, it's tough with the whole revolving door kind of scenario with the ACAC. But for us, we just trying to like have our guys and just invest in them and saying, hey, like you're with us regardless of 1 or 2, 3 years, or what do you want to do? Like we want you to be the best basketball player, the best student possible. And hopefully we just attain the right guys like that way.
I love your philosophy on recruiting local players because of the culture that you're able to build, because they do know each other. I think there's so much wisdom in that. A lot of times I think the notion of, or the stigma has been guns for hire being brought into the ACAC. And I don't want to lie, sometimes those are excellent players that come in and make an immediate impact on those programs. But ultimately, Adika, what's your philosophy as a coach? Like, what's your baseline of what you want your players to get out of their experience, not just playing on your team, but also being a student at NAIT?
I just want to challenge them. Like, I know me being a professional athlete and now reverting into being coach, and I think you go through a lot of challenges as a young man, and that's what I'm trying to do for these guys. You know, like, there's going to be tough times where you might miss a test or not get the greatest mark, but how do you deal with adversity? And that's what I try to push these guys in the classroom. We have study hall 2 times a week, and I make sure you guys have to be there. It's not an optional where I just show up when I want to show up. Weight room, guys need to get stronger, get more flexible. We're watching a lot of film, like three times a week we're watching film. Twice on us and then once on our opponents. So I really push these guys beyond the boundaries, saying if you guys want to get to the next level, you have to put the work in, regardless of what you do.
Well, Adika, I can say this from my observation of you both as not both, as a player, as a coach, and as a person. Your players are very fortunate to have someone with your experience, your background, and your philosophy, because they will be better off not just as a player on the court, but as a person off the court under your mentorship. Thanks so much for joining us today. We will get you back on in the new year. Best of luck rounding out the rest of your ACA schedule leading into Christmas, and continued success. Keep rising up those rankings.
All right. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Adika Peter-McNeilly, men's head coach at NAIT, 8-1. They are nationally ranked, as I mentioned. Now, also, I don't want to say Kiera's office is across the hall from Adika, but Kiera Lyons was an excellent college player at the University of Saskatchewan, and she now has her best team as a head coach of the women's NAIT Ooks program. And Kiera joins us today as well. Kiera, how are you today?
I'm a little heartbroken. We had a tough one last night, but overall, doing fantastic.
You did have a heartbreaker. Like, you really did have a heartbreaker. 67-66 loss to Augustana. Talk about the game. What was the difference in the game that led to that outcome?
Yeah, I mean, we were tied at half, and then up, I think, the whole second half until the last 10 seconds, I think. So truly a heartbreaker. Yeah, we made some mental errors at the end that, were crucial. We didn't use the clock like we should have. We allowed a 3 that you just can't allow at that time of the game. Just some things that, we can definitely, that are in our control. So even though it was, pretty devastating and heartbreaking, Augustana's good. Like, they're undefeated at home. We're in their gym. It's always really hard to play in their barn. The crowd was crazy. It was very playoff atmosphere, which was incredibly fun. And we played really well. We truly did. And it's cliche to say, but you learn more from a loss. And I truly, truly believe that we learned some incredibly valuable lessons from last night. And so I'm really grateful for that.
It's a great way to frame it, even though I know the competitor in you and in your team would much rather have learned the lessons with a W attached to it. But I think, though, Kiera, you did hit on something that's really important for both coaches and players to always remember, is that winning and losing is an outcome of a process. And what you're talking about is learning your lessons that will come back you're going to face another close game. You're going to face the situations that you just described where you have to take care of the ball in order to win a particular game, where you have to stop the 3 or run somebody off the line. What do you do? How do you go back now into the gym with your players to try to consolidate the learning of what they just experienced?
A few things. The first one is, like, I told them, like, you're allowed to be upset today, and then it's gone, right? Like, the season isn't won or lost in November, and like you said, like, the lessons at those tight games are so important. And we won a tight game the weekend before. And so being in these really close games at this point of the season is so valuable for us. And as much as we work on it in practice, like we do end game scenarios in practice, or we're starting to, we're at a point now in our development where we can start doing those things and playing out scenarios in practice. Nothing's like in a game, like when the big lights come on, there's just nothing like it. And so the fact that we're having those close games right now is really preparing us for playoffs, for nationals, for, when the peak of our season arrives, and we'll be familiar and we'll have a calmness and a confidence because we've been there before. We understand what we need to do. We understand the importance of executing our game plan right to the very last minute. And we know what it feels like to lose. We also know what it feels like to win those games. And I think that just experiencing that is incredibly important. And so it's, like I said, it's heartbreaking, but I'm super grateful.
I'm talking with Kiera Lyons. She is the head basketball coach of the women's team for the NAIT Ooks here on Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440. Kiera, is this your 4th season at NAIT? Did I get that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
4 years into it. Now, when you started, I think it's fair to say, as a head coach, you had never been a head coach of a women's collegiate program. What were the lessons that were the most challenging to learn that now seem rather routine to you with you being a new head coach?
I think recruiting is really big. Recognizing the things that I find important and that we value as a program, and kind of having a guideline as to what are the things that we're looking for, and what are the things that we're trying to be aware of that we don't want, and being able to pick that out a little bit. Having the most skilled or the most talent isn't the most important to us. And earlier, it was kind of, we had started from ground zero. They had graduated everybody after they won nationals when we took over. And now we've been able to be a bit more selective with how we're recruiting and the types that we're recruiting. And our retention has been phenomenal. Like, we returned 10 from last year, and I think that that's a huge thing. But yeah, recruiting, the way that we recruit and who we recruit has been, it gets more solidified every year. And I think that that's one of the biggest things, is just the types of young women that we want in our program.
Well, Kiera, I think the term retention is used less frequently in post-secondary basketball than it's ever been. So kudos to you and your staff, and also to the young women on your team who have bought into your vision. Obviously, you have sold them on a vision that they want to be a part of, and NAIT is the academic school of choice that they've wanted to pursue. So to have that kind of retention, that kind of carry forward and stability is a great accomplishment by you, and in no small manner is a big contributor to the type of success that you're having right now. What do you, Kiera, see as your biggest challenge with your team moving forward? You're off to a good start. You're 7-2. You play SAIT next weekend. What does your team have to do now to not just remain sharp, but to continue to improve?
Oh, the list of things. Honestly, it's the mentality. It's the buy-in. It's the recognizing the big picture and the goals that we have for ourselves this season as a team, as a program, and just recognizing that there is no failure, there is no losing, there's just learning. And so, we take a tough loss, and how do we react to it? How do we show up on Monday for practice? And how do we move forward and learn from that? And it's, like I said, losing is very valuable if you allow it to be. And so just being bought into the process, trusting our formula, trusting what we're doing, and just, having the reaction of digging in and getting better. And all of these, every weekend we talk about, every day we talk about, it's about us. It's about us. It's about what we're building. It's not about who we're playing. It's everything that we do in the gym every single day is what wins us games. And we're in there together. And when the best matchup is in practice, that's when really good things start to happen. But you have to have incredible buy-in to have, girls that aren't playing 35 minutes working just as hard as the ones that do. And that's something that we need to continue to work on, and something that we really need that buy-in from our bench. And that's what we've had. And that's a massive reason as to why we're being successful, is because our practices are so competitive, and girls go in off the bench and they do their job to the best of their ability. And we're able to be deep and hopefully be deeper as we go along in the season.
Controlling what you can control with the culture that you build. Kiera, you're doing a marvelous job. Congratulations on your success so far, but I say that in a qualified way. I wish you nothing but continued success, growth, progress that meet and exceed your expectations and the expectations of all your players. Thanks so much for joining us today on Hoop City.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.
Kiera Lyons, head women's coach at NAIT, joining us here on Hoop City with Paul Sir. We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we're going to have Steve Sir on. Steve's going to be talking about the upcoming FIBA 3x3 AmeriCup that will be happening next weekend in Mexico. Stay tuned here on Sports 1440, your sports leader. This is, Josh, this is late 60s Soul Week with our musical selection. I think I'm picking some tunes that you haven't really ever had to play before.
No, you asked me about Soul Deep.
By the Box Tops.
Oh, yeah. And so you're like, have you ever heard this one before, Josh? Absolutely not. Nowhere close to the musical taste of my parents or me or even my grandparents at this point.
I'm more in the grandparent category in that respect, Josh, believe me. But there's so much great music from that era that whenever I have a chance to share some of that when we do our playlist and getting ready for the show, I love to do that. Now we're gonna show a conversation I had with my son Steve, who, as I mentioned in our opening remarks, is on a plane right now heading down to Mexico to get ready for the upcoming AmeriCup in FIBA 3x3. It is the last event of the year in 3x3 in what has been a very, very successful year. Steve started playing FIBA 3x3 back in 2016, and since 2017 has been the top-ranked FIBA 3x3 player from Canada. He's known as the best 3x3 shooter really ever in the history of 3x3. And he also has an international reputation as a great basketball coach, coaching the women's and men's national teams in Mongolia. And as odd as that may sound in terms of a basketball nation, the first part of my conversation with Steve deals with a really special experience they had this last year when the Mongolian women won a silver medal in the World Cup, which is just unthinkable a few years ago. So here's my conversation with Steve.
Welcome back to Hoop City with Paul Sir here on Sports 1440. I'm pleased to be joined by my son, Steve Sir. Steve, thanks so much for making time today.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody who knows basketball in Edmonton, in fact, in Alberta and in Canada, and even globally knows who Steve Sir is. Steve, of course, locally, Ross Shep, great, won 2 provincial championships. At Ross Shep, Steve has held the three-point percentage all-time leader title for now it's 19 years, right? 2007, last year that Steve played at Northern Arizona. Had been the number one ranked team 3x3 player for Canada for 7 years, is a coach, mentor, and still a player. So Steve, welcome. And let's get started with the fact that this has been a season of transition for you. You coach the Mongolian national men's and women's teams. You've worked heavily with the development of their program. Talk about what the experience was like this year as you were juggling, trying to still play, which you did, but also focusing primarily on coaching.
It was what you said it was. It was a big transition year. My responsibilities in Mongolia the last 4 years have involved a lot of coaching and a lot of player development work, along with playing for the Pro Tour team Ulaanbaatar and juggling those schedules. It makes for a busy time over there, but I've always enjoyed that, of a lot of time in the gym day to day and seeing improvement with not just the group you're working with, but other players as well. This year was a little different. As we were hosting World Cup in Mongolia, there was a lot of excitement and a lot of anticipation for that event coming to the country, and a lot of prep work that went along with it to make sure that we were as competitive as we could be and put our best foot forward to showcase not just 3x3 and how it's really loved in Mongolia, but how that our players are getting better along with it. So that made for a busy schedule, obviously. And I love getting in the gym myself. I'll always find time to get some shots up and do the things that keep the crazy away from me of just staying in shape and making sure I stay sharp. But the challenging part this year was there's staying in shape and there's keeping a rhythm, and then there's being in game shape, and there's being sharp enough to play. The 3x3 landscape continues to grow by leaps and bounds every year. The talent gets better, the teams get better, the level of competition continues to grow. And it's hard to I wouldn't say jump in and jump out, but it's hard to take extended breaks where you're not playing. And even though you stay connected to the game with a lot of watching and a lot of film, and you're on the court practicing, to not have that rhythm of playing events where you're able to put back-to-back events together and find yourself along with finding the rhythm that you need for your team. It's challenging, but that said, it was a challenge to take on, and it was one that I enjoyed. So it was a different version of what it's been in the past. But that's what's exciting about challenges. You take them head on and you see what you need to do to get them done.
You took the challenge head on, Steve, and you accomplished something from a coaching perspective that had never been done before in Mongolia. And by that, I mean, no Mongolian team in any team sport had ever won a medal in a major international competition. That all changed this year with a silver medal performance by your women's team. 3 years ago, this was unthinkable. What had to happen in order to be able to compete at that level and be able to come away with a silver medal?
A lot of things. It was, to say that we were ahead of schedule would imply that this was on the schedule. This was not something that I think any of us who were involved with believed is the wrong word. I think anticipated that we were going to accomplish, especially at this time. The message in particular on the women's side has always just been, we need to keep getting better. And I know that sounds very general, but there's a lot of small things that go into getting better when you're talking about a sports culture like Mongolia that is doing a lot of this stuff for the first time. So it's getting stronger. And part of that was us identifying a good strength and conditioning coach to work with our athletes that we were very fortunate to finally nail down this year with Toshiya Koyanagi from Japan. He was a real soldier for us. He worked his butt off to get our girls and our guys as prepared as possible physically. It's the recovery and treatment side of it that Craig Wilson from Pivotal Physiotherapy here in town in Edmonton was able to come over and work with our teams and with me to make sure that everyone's healthy to play. So building that infrastructure helped our girls get better. And then on the court, our message was always, we're not just hosting. We want to compete. We want to show that all the things that are going unseen, all the work that's happening in the gym where there aren't cameras and there isn't Instagram and all these pats on the back of, wow, you guys are doing so amazing. It has to be shown at a stage like World Cup in your country, in front of your people, in front of your family and all the people that support you. It has to be on display. That didn't mean that it was going to be a medal. It was just more in line with, we're not just hosting. And that could have meant we competed and fought like crazy in pool and showed our best quality, and we didn't get out. But that was the main message. So there wasn't the pressure of, if we don't reach this platform, it's a failure. To give the women their credit, they bought into that completely. They fought like crazy. We went an extended period of time where we didn't have an event leading up to the World Cup. So we were doing a lot of practicing in Mongolia. We're scrimmaging against, under 18 boys teams, whatever we can put together to give the girls some run. And there was a lot of nervous anticipation of, we think we're getting better and we think we're ready, but we're not quite sure because we haven't been able to push and run against who we'll see in the tournament. And then prior to the tournament, we were able to arrange some scrimmages with the Canadian women's team. We were able to arrange a couple scrimmages with Singapore, and we were ready. The girls were focused. The girls were determined. We had a women's series stop right before the World Cup where we were so-so. And I think that acted as a good kick in the butt for our girls of like, hey, putting our best foot forward means actually having the courage to put it out there and know that it doesn't ensure success, but you have to have the guts to put it out there and really leave it out there. So once we were able to, I think, get the butterflies out of playing in the women's series, then the girls were able to refocus for World Cup. And the rest is exactly what happened. They played amazing. They made the biggest plays during the tightest times. The amount of determination they had and the courage that they had to get out there and just compete was truly inspiring. And to see how the entire city and country in Mongolia rallied behind them, and not just them, the other teams that were at the event, other people all all over the world who support the sport were all pulling for those women. So what they did was incredible. It was historic for the country. It's going to act as a huge conduit for change for basketball in the country, in particular for women. And now it puts them on the map in a way that a team in women's sports has never been on the map in Mongolia. And that's exciting to see, because it was all through a belief that we could be better and the girls' hard work and determination to get that done.
Well, and watching from afar, the national pride that came out of that is exactly what you would hope would be the outcome, Steve. But talk about the way that that the country celebrated and embraced this accomplishment by the women, because as you said, to call it unprecedented is an understatement. Some people have said it's the Jamaican bobsled team winning an Olympic medal. It's unthinkable. Like I mentioned the time frame 3 years ago that this was even a possibility. And the plays that the women made were incredible at the most pressure-packed time. It really was a real magical run, wasn't it?
It was. And, after it happened, there was a healthy appreciation for, we knew where we came from. We knew where we started. That whole idea, the Jim Valvano thing of where you started, where you are, and where you want to be. And when I got to Mongolia, and we couldn't win a game, it was a real, to say it was uphill doesn't really do it justice. It was a straight vertical climb to try and get better. And again, to give the girls credit, we had to step away from the result 3 years ago and say, okay, we have to focus on what we're doing every day in practice that might also not lead to immediate result. But if we think about this as a marathon, it's going to build to something. And to give our women credit, our two best players, Hulan and Nobutar and Aruka, Aryan Sensei, they bought into that. And they were very determined to fight through some difficulty, to fight through some change in how we played, to allow me to really get on them in practice, to really yell at them and really, really hold them accountable, because they were our best players, and the players that were underneath them had to see that it was going to be the hardest for our best players. And they kept believing in that. And then slowly but surely, we won a bronze medal at Asia Cup. First medal that we'd won up to that point, and it was very emotional for the women. And then, 2 months later, we won a women's series stop. Unthinkable the previous year. And, I'd love to say from an ego perspective that it's all coaching, but I know that the girls had to really fight to believe that there was something better in this for them, and that if they kept going, that they were going to see results, not just with wins, but improvement in their game and improvement in how they played, and a pride that you could take when you go on the court of you're not just getting killed every time you get out there. So what that stirred up in Mongolia is exactly what you would hope that it was an immense, deep pride for where these girls came from and what they had to do in order to get to where they were. It was met with all the amazing things that you would probably have on your dream list of what it would be. There was, a city procession where the girls and myself were, met with the president of Mongolia, and, were awarded medals for accomplishment, meeting with the prime minister, all the heads of state and political figures in Mongolia that acknowledged and recognized them. This is the first time, again, that women have ever been awarded a medal for an accomplishment in sport in their country. And then all the other acknowledgments and recognition that came along with this of, events and ceremonies that could showcase just who these women were and what they've done for their country. So it was inspiring. It was extremely gratifying. And, going through all of it, you have to just step back and let the girls soak this all in, because it's a once in a lifetime experience. And it's fun to reflect on, because it was special to be a part of.
Talking with Steve Sir about 3x3 here on Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440. Steve, you are still playing, and in fact, you're getting ready to head down to Mexico to go down with a number of other Canadian men's players, and the Canadian women's team will arrive as well, and compete next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend in the AmeriCup. Talk about what you're doing, what you've done to prepare for that, what the week is going to look like in getting ready for this season-ending event. I believe it is the last event in the FIBA 3x3 calendar in the world. But talk about what's gone into getting ready for this.
Trying to make sure that you're as prepared as possibly physically, make sure you're healthy, getting in the gym. We have a good culture for 3x3 here in Edmonton. So there's been, the guys locally that'll get in the gym and play and get shots up and want to compete and push, guys like Chris Mooney and Ryan Coleman and Lee Danderfer, the guys who've been committed to 3x3 locally and want to see it grow. So they've been amazing for me to get in the gym and just be able to work. Sabri Phillip, who was with the Stingers, obviously he's been in there as well. That's something I've always enjoyed doing, look forward to doing. I do better when I have a goal, when I have something to chase. It's harder to just get in the gym to be in the gym. Even though you enjoy it, it's much more of a motivator, and you're able to have a narrower focus when you're preparing for something specific. Working with Craig Wilson at Pivotal to make sure that everything's ready to go physically, which has been something that he supported me with for the last 9 years, pretty much my entire 3x3 career since I shifted from 5-on-5. And then on the team side, our group that has been selected to go down there to compete, to have a condensed training camp before the AmeriCup, to get some reps together, to figure some stuff out. We've done a couple of video sessions online to make sure that we're speaking the same language before we get down there. And I think so far it's been very positive, and everyone seems very excited. I mean, it's a long season of 3x3. Everybody has their different journey and experience with this sport of, playing here, playing there, losing this, winning that.